I for the longest time I thought I was being I thought I was missing a big piece of the puzzle. I did a lot of meditation. I did hours and hours of noting Vipassana, and got very far in it, and then moved into sort of the who am I practices, and had a very nice experience. But I couldn't bring myself to say, yeah, everything is consciousness. Like I had no that whole phrase, I had no direct experience of that at all. And I have no idea how anybody could make such a claim. It could be true. I just have no way of knowing it. And I remember reading your book, and you said a lot of the things that I hadn't heard anybody else say. You know what? This sounds like people are making guesses, maybe educated guesses, but there's no there's no way of knowing. And that changed my relationship to, instead of arguing about what people think, arguing about how they know it, or talking about how do you know something, as opposed to, well, I just believe it. But what is the experience that you're having that you would come up with this? And I don't know I don't know what's happening in my neighbor's house, let alone to say the entire universe is made of consciousness. That would be absurd for me to make that claim. And so that was I gained a little bit of trust in my own direct experience from knowing that somebody else had the balls to say, you know what, I know everybody says everything's made of consciousness and some other things that some other sort of platitudes. And I said, wow, there's someone who's sane, who has kind of gone through some of these things that I have, and has come to some of the same conclusions. So I don't know if I've paraphrased you correctly, and certainly you can, change anything that I've said on the record. It's been a while since I've read the books, but that was the sense that I got from reading you, and it gave me a trust in myself that that I could, what I was believing and experiencing was, a little bit of skepticism at what people were saying.
Well, thanks for that. That
Yeah,
certainly feels good to hear something like that. Um,
yeah,
I'm glad that my speaking out about my own situation was helpful to you.
yeah, yeah. It was.
That after a while, you have to give it up and know that your mind can't find the truth. You'll never know the truth. Nobody with their mind could ever know the truth. It has to be a direct experience. But before you go and into that direct experience, or before you go on the path to that direct experience, whether it be meditation, psychedelics, fasting, or you had a near-death experience, whatever it may be, before you decide to do that, or you can't decide to do a near-death experience. But what I'm saying is, you can know some things. You can know that materialism, for instance, is not the answer. And you could be locked into that paradigm until you die and never even get on the path. So that's where I'm coming from. But Robert, sorry to speak so much. If you'd like to comment on any of this.
Uh, well, there's a lot there, really. I mean, it's a whole worldview, which I really just can't critique wholesale. Um, Before, when you were speaking with Jason, Richard, you talked about the relative, and what comes up for me is relative to what?
Ah. I think Carlo Rovelli would say relative to the observer, or actually, to even go one better with you, I would say it's relative to whatever's permanent substrate is underneath.
Okay, so that's completely dualistic.
Well, not if everything's mental. If you have one mind or one consciousness or pure consciousness, and it folds in on itself, and a world or a dream
Mhm.
has come, which is also mental, then there's no dualism, because the universal consciousness is mental, we're mental, the world is mental. If everything's mental, then no dualism, right?
Uh, well, I think it's really hard to straighten out what you're saying, but it's tangled up in a certain way. It's just hard to get out in words.
Oh, let me say it differently then. Let me say it differently.
Okay.
Okay. My position would be, and then I'll let you respond to it. My position is that the ultimate reality, I'm not saying I know it. All we could know are the way it behaves when with the laws of nature of the universe. I mean, but that's not knowing it in itself. That's just knowing what properties are of it. So what I'm saying is universal consciousness would be ultimate reality, and we are immersed in that ultimate reality. So when we see the physical world, it's an image in our mind. It's not an actual physical world. It's
So
what the physical.
when you say, let me stop you there because
Yeah.
you'll overwhelm me. There's a lot there. When you say we're immersed in reality, and then on the other hand, you say all I can know is my own experience. I don't know how you can assume that there is some greater reality if you're not experiencing it. So there's no observer. If you're experiencing such a thing, I'm only assuming that there is some absolute. I don't know if there is or isn't. I have no way of knowing that. All I can know is my experience, and that's it. That's the limit.
Or
Yeah,
you could know.
let me finish now that I'm on
Sorry.
the thing that I heard Jason saying to you, but I'm not sure if you entirely heard what he was saying, is that he doesn't know anything about all that. And because he doesn't, it's not that interesting to discuss it because it will always be conjecture. And that's fine. People can spend their lives philosophizing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a form of, being human. I mean, I'm a bit of a philosopher myself. I'm interested in that stuff. But I know I will never come to conclusions about anything absolute or real or reality or whatever word you put on it because human limitation.
But I'm not saying I know what it is at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that
How do you
if
know
there
there
is
is, no,
experience.
how do you know there is such a thing, Richard?
Well, I am extrapolating from the one fact of nature that we have, and the only fact that we have is that we're aware.
Yeah, so that's good. So extrapolation is a form of speculation.
Well, unless you're a solipsist, um, you have to infer one thing beyond your own individual experience. Otherwise, it's
No,
solipsism.
no, no, I wouldn't say that. I don't do that, and I'm not solipsistic either. Neither.
Can you? What is that? What do you mean? You have to infer something outside of your own mind. I mean, there's a world outside of your mind, and how would you explain that if you're not a solipsist?
That's what I said was entirely dualistic. That's okay. It's okay to be dualistic, but if you really are, there's no point in discussing.
I'm not a dualist. I'm an idealist.
Well,
Like
that's what I'm saying is kind of tangled up because although you're speaking idealistically about the absolute, which is idealism after all, there's something beyond the physical.
right,
That,
but it's mental.
and,
No, I'm saying there's nothing physical. Okay, so I right now have an experience. It's mental experience. Whatever it is, I'm aware. That's mental. I'm aware. That's mental. When I look at the world, I'm not looking at physical objects. I'm seeing a representation in my mind that looks like it's physical, but it's also mentation. So I'm mental and the universe is mental. So
No,
there's no dualism at
but
all. It's
what
just that.
that's like wearing sunglasses and saying the world must be tinted. Just because everything is processed through your mind doesn't mean that the world is mind. I don't know if it is or not, but that's an extrapolation. Like there's no way of proving that. Like dualism, materialism, those are all
Okay.
models of the
Are you
world,
cover your
thoughts.
eyes? If you cover your eyes right now, are we still here?
uh, yes, in my
Okay.
experience you are, but
Okay.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, gosh, in this day and age you could all be AI models. So I don't know 100%. Now, as a I know that Robert exists, or I've never seen him in person, so I can't tell. I mean, again, this is,
Come on.
what do I really know? Again, that is the question. When you look at it, what do you really know?
I'm saying if my experience is mental, I'm extrapolating once. I'm doing one extrapolation towards, okay, I'm encased somehow. I'm not saying I know anything. I'm not saying I have
but,
the answers to
but,
anything.
but Richard, that's where we got to before.
Okay. Go
What,
ahead. What do you say, Robert?
no extrapolation?
I'm sorry.
What about no extrapolation?
Then you're a solipsist, and that we can't
No,
go
no,
that path.
no. You see, you're defining solipsism in a very strange way. A solipsist is someone who believes that nothing exists outside of himself, right?
Right. They're not making an inference. Right. They're not making an inference. It's the
The
same thing. We're saying the same
definition
thing.
of solipsism that I know, that I use, is the belief that nothing exists besides oneself, the observer of all this, or the center of reality.
We're saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing.
That's solipsism.
Yeah, we're
Yes?
saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing.
What? No, wait. Do we agree that that is the definition of
Yeah.
solipsism?
We're saying the same exact thing with different words. We're both saying the same thing. Yes.
But that's not my position. I don't have that belief in the least. And
What belief?
it's not even one that I have entertained since I was around 12 years old. I mean, I discarded that one before I knew anything about philosophy. That was just a self-discovery.
I mean, it could be true, but how would you ever know?
Okay.
How would you know?
That's it. So can we agree on that? Let's put a pitong in the mountain here that we can all three belay ourselves onto, so we don't need to reiterate this point.
Buddhists like to talk about naked awareness or pure awareness. You can get pretty close, I think, but you're still processing things. You're still.
My question to Jason and Robert is, name me one thing you could be more sure about, more than that awareness is happening.
What is the definition of awareness?
Can I jump in here, please?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, because I got part of the way with Richard, but then the conversation veered off. And all of this could be interesting if that's what you're interested in, but I'm not. I'm trying to cut to the chase, because this other thing, how it could be and what it feels like, and is there anything beyond myself and all this, that's an endless conversation, and it leads nowhere that I'm interested in. It's okay to have it. I'm not judging it. It's fine. It's good as bowling or watching the NFL or whatever. Same. It's entertainment.
Well, there's an implication.
But to cut to the chase of being, not verbally, not ideologically, but to actually experience what a human can experience, in my experience, requires pushing all this stuff off the table and creating an open space for experience, not to argue about what experience is or isn't, or if there's anything beyond experience, or none of that. I don't go there. The reason that people find clarity in my writing is that I don't go there. I just go to what I can observe right now, or be right now. I don't even call it observe. This is it. There is no alternative to which I have any access. What happens in my process, which I've carefully observed, is I find myself feeling things, thinking things, and doing things. And then thinking about those things, or trying to justify why I did it, or explain how such a thing could have occurred, or why I thought that, or what's the meaning of this or that. And so there's an endless dialogue with oneself about the meaning of everything. And the point is, that's the human condition, and we're not going to fucking get to the bottom of it by discussing it. That's my point. It's a very radical point of view. I get that. Just let me finish, Richard. I heard you out. It's important not to be distracted from this point. The point is, there's a world of philosophy. There's a world of discussion about what's real and what isn't. All of that eventually comes down to epistemology. How can you know what you know, or what does it mean to know something? And that is what the conversation that you and Jason were having comes down to. You're only discussing the limits of knowing.
But why do you think you and I are saying something different? Why you don't think that we're saying the same thing, Robert?
I don't think so.
Really? Because it sounds like it to me.
No, we might be saying the same thing if we were only talking about philosophy, but I'm not only talking about philosophy. I'm talking about actually what exists, not what I think about it.
And how do you come to those conclusions about what exists? Is it through direct experience, through like meditation, or?
Well, the word direct in the phrase direct experience is actually not needed. Experience is direct. That's what it means.
Okay, so yes, I agree.
Okay.
So
All I have is my experience. If something is not experienceable, I can't know about it. I can only know
right,
what is experienceable. And what I'm saying is a lot of the things that spiritual people discuss are not experiential,
mm,
not experienceable, but they keep blabbering about them. And I have no interest in that. When I came into this scene like 10 years ago, I was invited in by someone who said, "Wow, you're cool. Come on my show." John Troy. And we talked, and I found that everyone thought what I was saying was entirely radical. But from my point of view, it isn't. It's obvious. It's obvious that we humans are limited to what we experience with our nervous systems or however else we experience things. Who knows how we do? And that's the limit.
so Robert, if I say to you, tell me if there's anything different with what you're saying. Okay, I'm saying there's only one thing we could know, that experience is happening. There's an experience happening. There's some kind of experience, whether it's an illusion or not. I'm not even going there. There's some type of experience happening. That's all I'm saying.
Well, where we disagree,
I
you
don't know. I don't know if we disagree.
you ask, how do we disagree?
Yeah, do you think we disagree?
The way we disagree is what I was calling dualism. When you speak about these things, what you keep saying, that, and to be fair, you may just be saying it in a way that I misunderstand, and we might agree more than I think we do. That's possible, you know.
Sure.
But what I hear is there's a relative world, and then there's the absolute. That's dualism. There are two worlds. Suddenly there's two worlds where there only was one at most, if
I
that.
agree with you. I agree with you, but it's just the language, because
But the
when you
language,
speak,
but the language is the problem, because
yeah,
that's what the whole. Okay, I am critiquing not you, Richard, but the spirituality community that keeps talking about something that might be entirely invented, the so-called fucking absolute. It's dualistic to speak of the absolute. If there is such a thing, it's not experienceable, and you can't discuss it. You have no knowledge of it. You don't even
correct.
know if it exists, whether or not, assuming it does exist and such a thing did exist, you couldn't know anything about it. And
I agree.
all the great yogis of the past, when they had their great awakening, that's the thing that they awoke into. There's this thing that can't be described. I don't really experience it, but I have a feeling about it. It seems to do something to my mind or whatever they felt. And now the lesser minds are pontificating about the fucking absolute as if they know shit about it. And we don't. It's human limitation.
Hmm.
The only spirituality that's worth a fuck, I am saying in my critique of spirituality, is the kind that restores humanity to human limitation. An example of that would be Zen Buddhism. It has a strong streak about when you're tired, go to sleep. After you eat lunch, wash out your bowl. This is the level of human life, not the absolute. not some grinning guru discussing higher realms and all that as if he knew anything about it. Can't. Those are ideas in our minds. And I think you and Jason agree on that. And you and I agree on that. That's where I wanted to drive in the P-top.
Okay.
So then we're free to discuss our own experiences, not logically, or having to justify them with logic. See, then we just say, we're just these three animals. Or how many of there are five? We're
A
these,
lot of animals
Well,
on this call.
we're these five.
Robert, that's Bill. Bill, that's Robert and Jason, and RJ.
I've seen Bill before.
Greetings. How are you?
Hi. Yeah, I've seen you before. Okay, just to put the capper on that, what I see is that there's a bunch of human primate animals using human primate animal technology to carry on a human primate animal conversation. And I can't ascribe anything higher or lower to it. It's just what it is. And it always will be that. And there's no way of getting out of it or saying, oh, well, this conversation is just relative, but there's also an absolute level. What is that? We don't know. Nobody could possibly know that. I say, okay, well, that's it. So I don't know. I know I've made that clear to you, Richard. I saw that you grokked it. And I grok what you're saying too. We agree on a lot. There's no problem there at all. And the same with Jason. Jason and I agree on a lot. But we don't have to concur on every point. That's because nobody really knows. So nobody can be, if you'll forgive me, absolutely right or absolutely wrong. You're just relatively right or wrong in your assumptions.
And the beautiful thing is, I think part of the problem is people, they don't realize that what they know is not the truth. They sit on it like it's the truth. And then obviously we've got all these people that have different versions or opinions about their experience, and they sit on it like it's the truth. And then we can't find any common ground. Because in the end, we're creating a shared story to get along. That's how tribes exist. That's how people of different groups, they create this shared story. And once you realize it's a story that's maybe useful, it's not the truth, then that frees up all sorts of different things.
Robert, any thoughts on psychedelics, Robert?
Well, I've experienced a lot of psychedelic trips and all that. I came of age just when all that was happening for the first time in America. It was pretty interesting. All experimental. Nobody knew anything about it. Nothing was cut and dried. It was wild. There's nobody. Once again, we're at the boundary of human knowledge, and so people speculate. Like Terence McKenna thought that mushrooms actually came from outer space and that they landed on Earth, and apes started eating them, and that is how human intelligence evolved. That was Terence McKenna's take on it. And he was a great storyteller. It was very interesting to hear all of that. But after Terence leaves the lecture hall and you're just sitting there, you might think to yourself, how does he know all that? And the same thing with the things that I say. People quote the shit that I say as if it's some kind of truth. Robert says this. No matter how many times I will say, I'm just an ordinary human being like you. I have my opinions and views. That's it. But when you have a certain attitude, I guess I have it, people won't take that for true. I'm just talking. It's like Terence did. I thought the guy raved, but he was really bright and it was fun to listen to him, so I did. But do I think mushrooms came from outer space? Not really.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? So Well, I like what you've been saying, Jason. It's the fact that I somehow gave you courage to throw off that final shackle. That's really beautiful. I appreciate hearing it a lot, actually.
Yeah, because and again, I love the books, but at the end of the day, you have to be your own guru and take your experience and make of it what you will.
So obvious, right?
Yeah.
All you can do is be here and do what you do.
Right. It took me a long time to realize that everybody else is just trying to figure it out. Like nobody knows. And the people that are so super certain are the ones that I'm the most suspicious of, because I just don't know how they know.
I wanted to comment on what you were talking about when I jumped into the meeting. It was like an hour ago now, I guess, but you were talking about how you had passed through these various practices and beliefs and discarded one, moved on to the next one. And my impression at the time was, yeah, see, all of those are actually valuable. They don't need to be discarded, they need to be outgrown. But for a time to wet one's feet at all in the idea that there might be something besides my little moment here, it's important to have those teachings that I sometimes try to eviscerate have to be there, and people have to pass through them. It's just not good to spend your life stuck in Christianity or whatever the fuck it is, even though, and this was what you were discussing, Jason, it might help you with the pain of living, to believe something about God or whatever. And that's okay. I just wonder about a life where that belief is outgrown. What would that be like? Where you actually take the existential pill and say, I don't know anything. I don't know what happens when you die. I don't even know what happens when you're alive. I just know what I know, and it's not much. That's a hard one. So most people adopt beliefs, as you were discussing, Jason. They just cling to them. They sit on them, you said. They sit on their truths. Because it's very hard to take life straight up. It's very painful. And I think we don't acknowledge that in ourselves and others sufficiently. If you to see the world the way I do is inherently painful, extremely painful. I'm not saying that I would be without this pain. I would not. I need it in order to be fully human. But it's inherently painful to see how little we know and how much cruelty and all there is here, which is the human mind. And that's what we have. We have the human mind. We all have it, like a disease. And we have it like a disease, and it's hanging us up. But you can't talk yourself out of it. You just have to bite the bullet and live, I say.
Well, Robert, how did your experience change the way the mind can crush you? How did your experience change that when you had that experience on the kitchen floor? Didn't it make things, you were able to see things clearer or better and unattach? What changed things there?
Yeah, it was like a snake shedding its skin, if you've ever seen that. It took a couple of days to really accept you don't know fuck about fuck, and you're not making this. This is some kind of experience. It's mind-blowing. This
Yes.
fucking being at all is fucking mind-blowing. And you don't know anything about it. And the experts who tell you what to think about are full of shit. They should be telling you to have your own life. Instead, they're sitting there and selling their books and their fucking videos and everything else, describing what reality is, as if they knew, and they don't. Nobody does. We're just here. And it's a brief moment that we're here. I'm getting pretty old now, and it's going real quick. And just, And so to look for meaning in all of that is, to me, is gilding the lily. Of course it's meaningful while you're here. Everything matters. Whether you have a toothache or not, when you get up in the morning matters a whole lot. It all matters. We don't have to add meaning. It's like you have a perfect recipe, except I need the meaning to add. And when I stir it up, everything will be groovy. Richard, when you use the word relative, that demands the question, relative to what?
Yeah, no, that was a good point you made. And I would just like to add this. That was an excellent point. The relative is just the way that the absolute looks like to us when we observe. There really is no relative. There is no relative. There only is absolute. But from this point of view, it looks like it, but it's not it. So like an illusion, like a dream. So we're in a dream, and like Paul was speaking before, he was here earlier with Jason, and he was saying, like, think of this reality like a dream, like you have at night. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Robert. I just wanted to clarify that one point about the two worlds, the absolute and relative.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clear that up. But sorry, go ahead.
Well, this also has to do with what Bill was talking about. The idea that there's something that's better than what I see in my ordinary human vision and understanding, that there's something superior to it. And then we either can know it or we can't know it. That's another question. Bill was saying that if I got it right, Bill, correct me if I've misunderstood. I think what you were saying is that when you kind of woke up to the situation, you saw that what's happening on Earth is kind of relative to this greater love, or that's just a word, but this greater entity. And so
Sure.
you don't have to take things so seriously that are occurring in ordinary life. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously it's all the mind's perspective of what is horrible and what is beautiful. But like Jason was saying, when he did that, he kind of felt just totally detached. It's not so much being detached as it is experiencing it almost like a play where you will experience the highs and the lows, but you will basically feel them, but not let them rule your life, so to speak. Let them control your day. You want to feel those emotions, but not react to them. And it doesn't mean to be detached or not show love and compassion to everyone. That's, I think, our primary thing to do is to show love and compassion to everyone. But you're not loading your psyche up with all this trauma or the weight of the world on you, because you know that this is just a beautiful thing and there is no weight, and so why put it upon yourself? It's just a different perspective that enables you to go through this world in a much lighter capacity.
Yeah, so I wouldn't call that detachment. I would say you're grounded in that more than detached. You're just grounded.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Grounded in a different vision. That if I understand this, you had a moment or a time of awakening to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then since then, you're grounded in that understanding.
Yeah, but you do let go of things that have been pulling you down, so to speak.
Like what?
Well, just either past trauma or the distractions of everyday life, politics, or the wars and things like that. You know, you can show compassion for everyone that's involved, but it doesn't pull me down into the sorrow of it. I just see it as just a beautiful play that is here for us to enjoy.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's where you differ. I experience great sadness when I see um, children being bombed, just for example, out of the news.
Sure.
One example. Cops beating some guy to death because he's got the wrong skin color, whatever it is.
Mhm.
When I hear about those things, I can't help but identify with them because my mind is the human mind. I didn't make my mind, I inherited it from the human race when I was born. And it started to fill up with humanity's theories about what all this is about. And now I've got that, I'm stuck with it.
If somebody breaks into my house, I'm not going to treat it like a play or that this is an opportunity for more love and compassion. I'm going to stop them before they hurt my wife and my daughter. So I think that's part of the issue, is that people are looking for one philosophy that's one size fits all. And it's just not, there's different situations. People in war zones, they don't give a shit about non-duality or whether they're trying to survive. It's actually a great privilege to be able to even entertain, to have survival handled so much that we can worry about things that are so far removed from survival. So and that's not an attack on you. It's just saying, like, I've ran into that before in my own,
it's fine.
where I've said, okay, well, everything is one thing, and then you run into a situation where it's not necessarily appropriate, for me at least. And I think when you open up and you say, okay, what's happening now? How do I handle it? Rather than having this one overall sort of philosophy, or because it's just a thought. Like, okay, here's how I'll handle it. So I've run into that trap. How do I deal with this situation and still be whatever? And sometimes you have to survive. Sometimes you have to. It's not about you know, and that's just my perception, which all goes back to, is all of this spirituality just sort of we're just trying to handle the fact that we're dying and probably gone forever, and we will be non-existent, probably, possibly, for way longer than we're alive. Like, is all of this just a way to deal with that? Like the religions, it's just a different kind of religion without a God. And is that it's just a sedative to, this is life, we're animals, and we're gonna fucking die.
Well,
Game over.
the wife and child, protect the wife and child line is beautiful. That's the human primate animal, and that is beyond ethics. We talk about ethics, we discuss it, we have laws and everything, but when it comes down to it, there's something that cuts deeper than ethics.
Whatever it, and Robert, the reason why I have to postulate something, I'm not saying I know what it is. I'm not saying I know it, but I have to postulate something beyond the universe, because the universe is like finite and temporary. Things are moving, everything's in flux. And if you were saying before, relative, what is it relative to? Right. It, like Plato and Kant and the Buddha would say, because everything's in motion, in flux and changing, the only thing that could give rise to that is something permanent and eternal. Like, otherwise it's like turtles all the way down, right? Would you guys, Robert, do you have any thoughts on that?
I certainly do.
Jason, too?
I
Okay.
do have a thought on that.
Okay, I'd love to hear it.
It's a primary thought.
Okay.
There's not going to be any movement forward unless you adopt an axiom at the beginning of the conversation. Otherwise, that you have no ground to stand on. You can't make a point if you don't have some place for the fulcrum. You have to have an axiom.
And are you choosing Aristotle's axioms
well,
for this?
you've chosen an axiom just now.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
You've stated something as axiomatic, which was
Okay.
since everything appears to be in flux, there must be something stationary or permanent. That's an axiom. Whether it's true
Okay.
or not, I have no idea. How could I know such a thing?
I'm saying if you compare it to the alternative is turtles all the way down. I choose there's something permanent giving rise to the relative.
It's not either or. It could be both and it could be that there's other possibilities that you and I are not able to imagine because our intellects are not infinite. We have finite intellects. We're animals. I keep repeating.
What if in Plato's cave, when the prisoner who escaped comes back down and says, "There's a fire behind you," they're putting on a puppet show, and Robert, what if you said, "Yeah, but how can I know that?" Which is true because you're chained, right?
Mm-hmm.
You say, "How can I know that?" And the prisoner's like, you have to turn around. You have to break the chain. You have to turn around. What would you say?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I'm not in that position. I have the chains around my neck and there's no way to not have them. So
Right.
I'm in the same position as everyone else is. And the best we can do, I say, and I could be wrong. Someone may have transcended my understanding. And if that happened, okay, I'm not in control of that. What I'm saying is I'm stuck just like everyone else, but I understand it. I see it. And to me, that's the best liberation one can have. Then you're just free to live because you see your actual situation. You were born.
And what do you think of the guy who is telling you, "Yeah, Robert, I know you're stuck. I could see the chains, and there's a way to get beyond that." And if you keep saying, "How can I know that?" and "I don't know anything," and the guy is going, "Look, Robert, I know, and I'm here to help you. There's a way to break that chain. We could put this key in and we could unlock it." And you say, "I don't know anything about a key. I don't, how can I know about a key?"
That is the question. So that's definitely at the crux of the matter.
Yes.
Okay, so all I can say about that is that I have listened to a lot of those people and so far have not anything that was said.
Right.